Welcome to Bike Week Radio Show.
Powered by Geico. 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.
Bike Week Radio Show with Bobby Wooldridge, Broc Glover, and Paul Carruthers on San Diego's sports leader, the mighty 1090.
Good morning and welcome into Bike Week Radio Show on San Diego Sports Leader, the mighty 1090. Oh my goodness, what a huge show we have today. And finally, after so many weeks, days, hours apart, we're finally once again. The band is back together. Broc Glover in studio, Paul Carruthers here, Scott Cox.
That's who that is. Look how long his hair is now.
I know.
That beard looks pretty cool, Brockster.
Brockster, good to have you back, buddy.
It's good to be back, and kind of a special occasion that I did not go to Indianapolis.
Yeah, why aren't you in Indianapolis?
As young as I am, it's surprising, but we have our daughter, JC, is turning 16 today.
No!
Happy birthday.
I know, so shout out to her. Happy birthday, dear. Sweet 16.
Oh, JC.
And I know, it wasn't too long ago, she was
JC.
crawling around on her hands and knees in Scott and Pat's living room.
Right.
And now
Were
It
you
was
able to
under
get
the
that-
desk.
Yeah.
She was there in a bassinet under the desk while Brock and I were
working, and it's
It's funny because Brock and I obviously started our baby making procedures at
Together?
different times.
Yeah,
No,
now that you're a grandpa.
yeah,
and,
my daughter was 26 this week.
wow.
And
That
also-
shows. He was winning national championships, and I was making babies at a national league level pace.
So who was having more fun? I'm not sure. It's probably a tie.
Mine was less painful.
So did you get that Maserati all wrapped up
I
for her?
did. I
With
have
the
it
big
all
bow
in
on
a
it?
bow, and she said now that she got a sneak preview of it, and she didn't like the color, so
She
I
said,
have to return it. But also, speaking of birthdays, happy birthday! I think it's the 33rd of Chad Reed today.
That's right. Yeah, we were
The
just looking
elder
at some,
statesman.
There he was. We looked at a nice picture of his team. His
Yeah, the
team
team looked
manager,
pretty
Jim
happy. He looked
Osterman,
pretty
said,
miserable.
Yeah, happy birthday, boss. I'll show you. Chad's back there. He's got the full grumpy cat going. But, happy birthday, Chad.
Well, I think if he wins a Supercross and another, I probably can't do it this year because I think Mike LaRocco still has the distinction of the elderliest statesman of the winning podium there. He won Indianapolis. Actually, was his final Supercross, and he was honored last night.
And he was
as
the Legends and Heroes honoree last night in Indianapolis.
So.
And it's a great day to give us a phone call if you want to talk to the legendary, iconic Paul Carruthers or Scott Cox or just some guy named Broc Glover. Today's a good day. 877-792-1090, 858-457-1090. But let's get things going with Paul Carruthers and the news.
Nobody knows the news better than Bike Week Radio Show.
This was an age when only men were allowed to read the news.
And only Bike Week Radio Show has Paul Carruthers.
See, I'm here. We can do the news now. It's all right, everyone. We can do the news. Hold on. Everyone, why are we all standing around? Let's go.
Well, we had a little MotoGP testing going on right now. There's 2 days of testing at the Qatar circuit. And that's where the season opens here in a couple of weeks, so it is their last test of the year. And there's a bit of a surprise, which is I think everybody's pretty surprised and also happy that the two Ducatis are at the top of the timesheets after the first day. They've got their new bike, the GP15, and I think,
That's clever naming.
Yeah, I know.
That's why they do it every year.
Yeah, but it's funny
Why
because
make it so complex?
they don't go from like GP14 to 15. There's like a GP14-1 and a 14-2. And there's like different, variations of a 14 before you actually
And
get to your
fastest
15.
Ducati rider, Andrea Iannone,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, he was faster than Dovizioso. And they were just a hair quicker than Marc Marquez, who, of course, is the defending two-time world champion on the factory Honda. Then we had Espargaro on the Suzuki. So at least, it's a little difficult to tell because, obviously some guys are using softer compound tires than other guys, so the times might be a little misleading. But from hearing the guys talk and reading about it, the new Ducatis obviously finally might be, back to something that they need that those guys can ride because they've always had problems, I think, mostly with front end feel. But it's a whole new chassis. It's a completely new bike. So
Talk about feels so good.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see those guys, up at the front because I think it's good for it's good for the
do
sport.
the real previous contenders, do they hold their cards pretty close to their chest? In other words, they show up there on a full tank of fuel and slower tires and all.
No, I don't. I don't think it's like that because
or do they want to lay it on line?
They do want to lay it on the line because it's important to them. Like Lorenzo was the first Yamaha and he was 6th, but I read what he had to say and they had a pretty difficult day and he's expecting more today. But again, I mean, it's not a huge gap, obviously. Nicky Hayden was 17th, and he's 1.7 seconds off, and that's in 17th. So the top 10 are really close.
Wow.
But so they get rolling here pretty soon. Everybody's
first round is when?
2 weeks, I think, end of March. And they, obviously Formula One started last night, so that kind of gets that whole feeling of that top level road racing type stuff going. We also had the Daytona 200 yesterday, and it was a pretty eventful race. And believe it or not, it was the first. I think it's probably the first Daytona that ran without pit stops because they had so many red flags. The race would get stopped, so then they could come in and do gas and tires. They ended up having a quick pit with a handful of laps to go to get a splash of gas, but it was the first time that I think they've had a Daytona 200 without the tire changes and all the stuff that those guys practice all week, and that's kind of, it's a big deal in the Daytona 200, those pit stops. So
they allow them under a red flag to put
fresh
tires
under a red
on.
flag, they come in, and if you can put fresh tires and stuff on it at that point. So that did away with those pit stops that kind of make that race a little more interesting to see those guys do those pit stops at speed because, it shows the teams that are a little more prepared than the others. So Danny Eslick won, and if you remember, he won last year on the Triumph. This year he rode a Suzuki GSX-R 600 to the victory, beating Josh Herron by 0.086 of a second. So it came down to, as most of those Daytona races do, on that run from the chicane to the finish line. Herron he gained like 3 seconds on Eslick in the last handful of laps and took the lead on the back straightaway, which probably, I don't know, it might not have been the smartest thing. As it turned out, it wasn't, but it's one of those things you never know. If you think you can get a little bit of a gap, maybe you can hold him off, and it just turned out that he didn't. So third place went to Jeff May. He rode a Project Mayday, get it? Because his name's May,
And that's Jeff with a G,
means.
right?
Yeah, Geoff.
Geoff.
Goff.
So he actually doesn't have a ride for this season. So far for our series that's getting started here in April, he doesn't have a ride. So he put together this project where it was one of those things where you have
crowdfunding.
Yeah, exactly. So he was able to put together a bike and a bit of a team, and like he said, it was back to like when he started because it was basically him going down there in a van with his bike in the back. But he was able to get third. Beyond that, if you look at the results, and this is no disrespect to the rest of the guys in that field by any means.
That we would never disrespect.
But I mean, it just, the level just dropped off completely. I mean, it made the 250 East Supercross series look like it had packed with stars. But we'll talk about that later.
And how was the crowd for free admission?
I don't know, to tell you the truth. I mean,
it was pan this paint.
It was hard to tell from the TV coverage. Or the internet, that they use that fan choice TV. It was difficult to tell, but in fairness, Daytona for the road race, nobody sits in those big stands anyway because it's not a very good viewing spot. So most people are in the infield, so it was hard to tell. But I'm sure they didn't have a very big crowd.
It's gonna be next year when they go back to Daytona. They've added another complete level up near the press box, fans actually seating area. And I think, as crazy as it is and as scary as it's going to be to sit that high, it's going to be a pretty awesome viewing point because you're going to be able to see the back straightaway and the chicane and that all the important stuff that leads up to. I mean, obviously you need binoculars, but at least you're going to be able to see the whole racetrack pretty clearly.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect for the cars because they're bigger.
Yeah.
And there's, but the bikes, I mean, they tend to
need binoculars.
Yeah,
no question about
it looks like, ants crawling down the back straightaway at a high rate of speed. Daytona also this year, as it always does, kicks off the AMA Grand National Dirt Track Championship with 2 short tracks. The short track's located on the outside of the turn 1 there of the Super Speedway. They've got a nice little dirt track set up, and they had 2 races. Stevie Bonzi rode his Suzuki to victory in the first of the 2 nights of short track racing there, barely beating Jared Mees and Kenny Coolbeth. On night 2, Kenny Coolbeth I mean, you rarely see a guy win a short track by almost 7 seconds, and he did. He just flat out.
Was there a crash? I mean,
no. He just.
I'll tell you, when he's on though.
You're right.
We saw him at Pomona last year, and it was like, wow.
Yeah, there's times when he can finish 5th or 6th, but there's times when he just. I don't know if he gets the setup right or whatever, but man, he can just take off and leave those guys. So.
He beat Eli Tomac of
Brandon Robinson was 2nd, and our buddy Sammy Halbert finished 3rd. I don't know what happened to Salbert. He didn't have that great of a Daytona. He's normally, it's kind of like his place. He's won so many times there, but not this year. Supercross, Ryan Dungey beat Cole Seeley and Trey Kennard to win the Indy Supercross and take his 5th win of the season, and is it 3rd in a row?
3rd in a row, 4 out of the last 5.
Yeah, and he now leads the series by 45 points. We're going to talk about Supercross here in a second. The 250 race was a bit of a snore fest. Marvin Musquin, he's going to wear out the heels of his boots before this thing's over because he does those heel clickers every time he wins, and he wins.
He puts taps on them too. If they didn't have any sound there, you could hear him click.
He won his 4th race of the season and 3rd in a row. And Bogle there got 2nd again. We were talking about it in the back room. It's like, Jeremy Martin didn't make the main event because of the problems he had, but you kind of get the feeling that he's the only guy that maybe could step up because Bogle obviously is getting good starts and he's there and he just doesn't have the speed.
Yesterday he stepped off.
To stay with Musquin. RJ Hampshire.
Yep.
He had a good Daytona and then a good race here, finished 3rd. That's his first podium finish of his
and you know what? Season. The Geico Honda team had 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and not only did RJ Hampshire step up, and if any of you guys paid attention last year a little bit more, the Monster Energy Cup race at the end of the year,
right.
RJ had an impressive debut, and that's kind of where most people. Pro level fans kind of got a glimpse
on
of
the radar. Then.
Got a glimpse of what the future's coming up in the All-Star class there, and it's like, oh, this kid's going to be pretty hot when he steps up into the pros, and he's worked his way up slowly. And Jordan Smith too, even after having such a kind of a weak qualifier, I think he was 8th or so in his qualifier, 7th, 8th or so. He finished and came back through and worked his way up from a fairly poor gate pick all the way up and ended up finishing a strong 4th. So impressive. The Geico Honda team did real well, and again, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. So yeah, but Marvin's a bit in a class of his own right now.
Yeah, he's like a man amongst boys.
Yeah, he is. He's got about a half a second or more on everybody every lap, and it's just and Bogle did go down pretty good in midway through the race, and so that kind of leads to my next discussion. We were talking a little bit back before the show, but the TV coverage, I mean, normally I'd give them an A, but geez, I like they didn't show Bogle's crash really at all. They barely even commented on it. The other thing that was kind of odd, during one of the heat races, there's a kid named Alex Ray, complete perennial, just a privateer to the privateer's degree, right? This guy's scrapping and trying to borrow everything he can to get the race to race.
Shows up in a pickup.
And he had one heck of a semi going, and he was in qualifying position and looked like, can this guy hang on? And Jason Anderson was behind him, and they did show Jason Anderson got together with him, crashed into him, and bumped into him pretty hard in the corner. And It's like, hey, you know what? There was a few words exchanged at the end as they crossed, but clearly they were going for the final qualifying spot, and you got to expect it. And even the guy said Alex Ray knew he was coming, so it just happened, right?
There's a lot of pressure.
So Alex jumps in the LCQ, gets the start, leading the race, comes off with a little wall, and then accelerates down the starting area down the straightaway, and bike just quits. You just see him pull over to the side, and TV never comments on it.
It's just over with.
What
happened?
It's like the guy's leading the race. You guys don't even hardly mention his name, and then it's like, oh, yeah, Nick Way's leading the race. He's going to win his semi and win his first LCQ of the year and make his 160-something main event, which is impressive. I mean, There's only been 600 main events, and the guy's been in a quarter of them.
That is pretty impressive.
That is really impressive. So Nick Way, I think, is going to end up being the all-time main event qualifier of the sport. So he's
like the John Ashmead of John Ashmead's like the mileage leader.
He's like George Blanda.
He's like 876 years old, and he still races. In
Nick Way could be the answer to a Jeopardy motorcycle Jeopardy question someday. So he's congratulations to Nick. But yeah, it just kind of surprised me a little bit of that. And then in the main event, you know, a guy that's capable of winning any time, fastest qualifier of the night, Eli Tomac, jumps off the side of the track doing what he's done so many times to the level of frustration. On the first couple laps, he throws the race away, and he has a lot of speed. He's running in third or fourth, and he jumps off the side of the track, lands on a tough block and cartwheels, and they don't even mention it till almost the end of the show.
It's quite a get off.
And it was like, wow, okay, so what happened to Tomac?
Right, because when you're watching that on TV, you saw that he's right there, and you're thinking, okay, here's a guy that has the potential to get up there and race with Dungey, and then all of a sudden he's not there, and you don't know why.
And they don't say anything, and I had to rewind it and go, I swear Tomac was up there on the start, and then I watched all the way through the TV, and then they finally make a mention of it. And they
I think they mentioned it when he got... he started
he
got lapped because then he actually started racing with Dungey, and you're like,
then he unlaps and then he unlaps himself. So he was the fastest qualifier, and if you guys remember last year, he was very, very fast there, and he is probably America's, I'd say on any given day, he's America's best rut rider, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And when the track gets real rutted up, like I would say years ago, one of the worst pro-level guys that I saw was Andrew Short. Now, he's improved tremendously, and he's now competitive in the rutty conditions. But there was a period there. He struggled when the track got real rutty.
I hate ruts.
And I'm with him. I'm with Andrew.
But it was funny at the end there with Tomac and Dungey because, like he said, he unlapped himself. And a lot of people would think, like, why bother? But if you get a whole nother lap, there's a chance to pass 2 or 3 more guys. I don't know if that worked out that way for him.
And there was a lot of guys crashing last night. So,
Tomac came from, he was at one point 21st or something.
Yeah, where did he end up?
Last. He ended up 11th.
Yeah.
So you have to give it credit for it. I mean, he was, 2 spots behind guys like Chad Reed and who finished 9th and right behind Jake Weimer. So it was important for Tomac to stay out there. I know he didn't want to impede the leader, and he didn't want to be that guy that knocked the leader down or something stupid.
Although it would help his teammate.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but and then that was.
I just wish he would, a little more patience in the beginning or something because. He just makes an early mistake that he can't come back from.
Yeah, it's very frustrating for me because I'm a big Eli Tomac fan, and I just go, God darn it, dude, just get through the first couple laps. Don't throw it away. Just relax, calm down, take a breath, something. But it's frustrating that he's just a competitive kid. So we'll talk more about Supercross after the break, right?
Indeed, and Broc Glover, this is why we love Broc. For multiple reasons, obviously we love Broc, but he's out there in the pits day in, day out, and gets some exclusive inside knowledge and kind of gives a different perspective than the rest of us are privy to. And so Broc's got some very, very interesting perspective on something that you're going to want to hear coming up next. But right now, here's another helpful writing hint from our good friends at Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys.
I like smoking lightning.
Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys have been representing riders for decades. And here's Chuck Coro from Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys to provide you with a helpful writing hint.
Some riders like to customize their license plates, but it's a violation of the vehicle code to do so. Section 4464 prohibits alteration of license plates, meaning you are not permitted to paint them. And Section 5201 requires that your plates be mounted so that the characters are upright. So if you don't want a ticket, you may want to fix it.
This helpful hint has been brought to you by Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys at 1-800-4BIKERS or online at russbrown.com.
The negotiation begins the minute you walk in the door, Frank.
Jerry, I'm going to Toyota Carlsbad for my new Toyota. I don't have to worry.
Brother, walk in with that attitude, you're dead meat.
Yeah, I don't think that's
First thing when you walk in, walk out.
Jerry,
you come back the next day, just walk right in, walk right out. Look, come back a week later, look him right in the eye and say,
I'd like to buy a car.
No, walk out.
Jerry, does this explain why you don't own a car?
You made me forget. Was I in or out?
You're out.
This spring, hop in and save on a huge selection of new and used Toyotas.
Toyota Carlsbad.
Here's an idea. Bear with me. You could save quite a bit of money just by switching your motorcycle insurance to Geico. Piles of it, in fact. But there may not be a lot of room on your bike for all that extra cash. So I had somewhat of an idea. You could get one of those nifty little sidecars, pile it up with all that money you just saved, and merrily drive on your way. It's just a thought. Just off the top of my head.
Call Geico today for a free motorcycle rate quote. Geico, saving people money on more than just car insurance.
Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys are the real deal. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys. Their entire practice is dedicated to representing motorcyclists. As riders themselves, they understand why you ride, the issues you face, and the motorcycle culture. For over 30 years, Russ Brown and his partner Chuck Coro have been helping injured motorcyclists and their families get the care and compensation they deserve. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys also created BAM. BAM! A nationwide buddy system of over 2 million riders helping riders in the event of a roadside emergency. BAM offers free legal advice, and thanks to Russ Brown, they have staff on hand to take your call 24/7, 365 days a year.
Imagine a real person answering the phone 24/7.
Just call 1-800-4BIKERS for more information and to get your BAM card today. If you go down, call Russ Brown. 1-800-4BIKERS and online at russbrown.com.
Hi, James here from Toyota of Escondido. Guys, if you're hearing this commercial, that means you are into powerful machines that go fast and are durable. Toyota of Escondido has the biggest selection in San Diego of Toyota Tacomas and Toyota Tundras. Whether for work or play, we can customize the truck of your choice into the truck of your dreams. Don't waste time anywhere else. Stop by or give us a call. Toyota of Escondido. Freeway close where Highway 78 meets Broadway, just east of the 15.
You're listening to Bike Week Radio Show with Bobby Wooldridge, Broc Glover, and Paul Carruthers on San Diego's sports leader, the mighty 1090.
What was that?
What's with my equipment here? Thing shot to the ceiling, bounced off the console.
On cue, as soon as I hit the mic on button, Scott's mic just...
Fuck it, there it goes again.
They're supposed to be spring-loaded.
Hey, I just wanted to say hello because I know he's listening. Broc, it's our friend Pier Paolo Rigo from Tachita Motorcycles. You rode one of his
electric motorcycles.
Yeah. But he's got a whole line of bikes. I invited him to come to the United States for a couple of days and just kick tires and go around. I introduced him to some editors. We went up and cruised Hollywood, and he just he got to see what it was like. And, of course, like every European who comes and stays with any of us, what's the first thing they say? It's 90 degrees, and every 5 minutes, where are the motorcycles? Scott, where are the motorcycles? You know, and I have to ask the same thing.
Or where are the speedos?
Where are
Sometimes they ask that too.
Well, they're always on, but you know, it was fun to have him here. He makes an amazing motorcycle, and if people are interested, they can go to tachita.it. It's a full English language website with video and whatnot, but it's Tacita, and Tachita is the Greek goddess of silence.
Yes, and it's a it's a works electric motorcycle, basically.
Yeah,
it's almost all CNC milled. It's pretty trick.
Olin suspension. It's all because his idea was, in fact, I took him up to meet Mark Cook from Motorcyclists and Chris Dennison from Dirt Rider the other day, and he says, I do not make electric motorcycle. I make a motorcycle. It happens to be electric.
Exactly. Yeah. And they are. And I wrote it on.
What kind of accent was that?
That was a darn good one. That was, you know.
I want to order some spaghetti right now.
I'd like a brioche and a cappucci.
Well, we got Broc Glover in studio, his glorious return, and it's so great to have Brockster back here. And I'm sure Broc actually enjoyed a week at home with his family and enjoying
and birthday girl JC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Well, we talked about doing kind of a Supercross midterm grade, and although the halfway point officially passed to Daytona, but it's in studio is a lot better. I always like to get your input and not be waiting on the telephone, kind of a delay thing. So you get face to face here. But, I guess let's start with the ups. I mean, who's the season's biggest surprise? I mean, for me, probably Weston Pike is probably the biggest surprise right off the bat. I mean, the guy's competitive. He won a heat race last night. He's been battling injuries. He's had to miss even after his top finish where he got fourth, which he tied last night again for a fourth. In Phoenix, he landed awkwardly, broke a bone in his foot, had to miss a couple races, still gutted it out. The kid's tougher than a $2 steak, using that old metaphor 100 times over. But he's just, he doesn't let anything bother him. He just puts the hammer down and goes as hard as he can. And I know he's limited the amount of training he can do right now, so he's not in the shape he wants to be. But the competitors are lucky that the guy isn't in the shape that he came into the season with, because he'd probably be winning a race by now. And
plus,
then,
he could have that face on a Dinty Moore stew can. He just looks like a lumberjack.
He does.
He is. He's definitely your first.
Now is he a guy
He's
that's
your left tackle to protect the backside of the quarterback.
Is he a guy that could be a factor in the outdoors? Or is he a Supercross guy, or what?
I think his Supercross skills are maybe just a touch ahead of his outdoor skills. But you know what? Yes, the answer is yes. He could be a factor anywhere. He's been a surprise already in Supercross, so of course he's.
Because you just look at him and he looks like some gnarly, like outdoor, I'll wear you down type of a.
Do you remember?
They've described him on air as he looks like an MMA fighter. When he rubs up against somebody, it's like, I wouldn't want to be going up against that guy when you return to the pit area.
Yeah, exactly. He's just he's a tough guy, and you know what? He's probably the downfall is he's probably not he's a personable guy if you talk to him face to face, but it's when you get him in a microphone, he's not that guy that they're going to want to interview all the time.
Right.
So he probably could work on that a little bit and probably raise his stock a little more. He is very good outdoors, though. Don't misunderstand me there. If you remember, he actually came up, I think, I remember passing Barsh at the Miller race a couple years ago, and he was a complete privateer, literally working in a parking lot under an easy up, just pitted right behind the Dunlop truck like a truck. I mean, it was at that point he's tough kid.
I think his big mistake was probably not crying on TV when he won his heat race. Like
his first heat race.
Yeah, if he would have gone full Mike Alessi.
Yep.
The tears flowing into the beard and stuff, that would have been quite cool.
We'll get to the Alessi in a little bit here.
That was hard.
The other one's probably Blake Baggett. I think everybody felt the 450s were just going to be too much bike for a kid that weighs about 125 pounds. Unfortunately, we did see last night he was running competitively, had an awkward, just grabbed a lot of front brake in a corner coming into a bowl, crashes, and of course the bike lands on top of him, pins him down.
Like a mousetrap.
Like a mousetrap, exactly. He's pinned down, and there's no chance he's going to start messing with the thing.
And plus his little wheel was hanging there.
That's the thing.
Like a mouse.
Pat Cox made a comment. It's just like in Wizard of Oz when the house falls on the witch, and then her feet kind of curl up.
Exactly, and there's no way at that point you can't reach up and start wrestling your motorcycle because there's chain going, there's sprocket going, there's wheel spokes. You don't want to mess with it.
He was smart, just lay still.
And they took a little extra time, it seemed like, getting to him, but they did get to him. So Baggett's I'll give him the up. So then the up and down schizophrenic, I have no idea how to rate these guys.
Yo-yos.
Yeah, the yo-yos. I mean, Chad Reed. He wins the first Atlanta, but yet he, keeps having some issues where he looked like he was competitive for a couple weeks in a row, but fell. Like Atlanta 2, he was running in second behind Pike, and he crashed in a corner. Okay, I understand he fell down. That happens. Then the next week, kind of same thing at Daytona. He looked like, Daytona is his track. He loves that kind of track. He's a good sand rider. He grew up racing Grand Prix, based in a Dutch team, based in sand. He's a good sand rider. So he looked like, and then this last couple of weeks, his qualifying's been 8th and 9th, and his finishes are 8th or 9th. So it's just kind of I'm not sure how to rate him. I mean, you have to give him a thumbs up for winning a race at, 32 years old, but, it's hard. And then the Canard, I don't know what to say about him either. He's capable at any time, but his starts are atrocious.
Well, we were talking about in the back room before you got here, and it's like, he's the one guy that you think if he does get a good start, he can make it a battle at the front. And he's also the type, if he starts to get good starts, he could win 5 in a row.
Exactly.
But
so he won San Diego, the inaugural Petco event, but he's just continually just Mr. Third Place. From Anaheim 1, he was third place. In Arlington in Texas, he was third place. He was Atlanta 1, he was third place. Atlanta 2, he was third place.
But they're third places that are impressive because of how far
he comes from 14th, 16th, 11th, 19th.
Right.
Yeah, he's third place. And
he gets to work, and it's like everybody acknowledges, well, Canard's coming. He's coming.
So he wins Oakland for the first win of the year, then comes back, and in Anaheim 3, he has a little bit of issue, and he gets a 4th. Well, then he wins again San Diego. It's like, okay, Canard's going to literally be a contender here. That was before Dungey went on his run. So, of course you give Dungey an up also because, why wouldn't you? But you expected him to be there. The guy has not finished. His worst finish is a 4th. That was in Anaheim 1, and then he's gone. From there he went 3rd, 2nd, 2nd, 1st, 3rd, 1st, 2nd, 1st, 1st. That's the 45
You would think
points.
James Stewart's at home, like, chomping at the bit, because if you look at this season, it's like it would have been a season, you'd think if, he put some things together, it's a season he could have competed for a title.
Exactly. And then the downs, you'd have to probably say, I mean, we mentioned the Tomac. I expected more out of him, to be honest.
It's a huge down.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give him he just has got to. He's got to get to the level of true veteran professional where you get through the first couple laps. I mean, I always make a point of mentioning the great Jeremy McGrath. That guy, his whole career, I only saw him go down in the first turn of a Supercross probably once. I know it was more than that, but the only once that I can remember. That guy didn't get himself in a position in the first corner. Even if his start wasn't good, he did not get himself in a position that it was high risk or he was likely going to go down.
Right.
He never took that chance because he knew the race would never be won in the first corner, but it would certainly be lost. You might pick up a spot or two, but when the end of the race is over at 20 laps, most of the time the gap, that little half a second you gained in the first corner by taking a risky move, is not even the difference between any position. You're too spread out at the end. You got to get through the first couple laps. So that's my only thing with Tomac. Millsap's battling Epstein's Barr. I mean, I think he's had some. He's had some health issues.
I haven't even heard of that lately. It used to be all the rage.
It was all the rage.
I called it the Roseanne Bar.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's you're just tired all the time.
Yeah,
what we call it in school, mono, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
we didn't even have it when we were kids.
Yeah.
I think you were just called a big pussy if you didn't keep winning.
Or if you didn't keep training, dig deep. You need to dig deeper. And so that's, I'd have to give him a down. His season's a down. I think, we expected him to be, after watching him at the Monster Energy Cup last year, win the thing and be the only guy that could even run Trey Canard's pace. We expected him to come out and be a top 3 contender and win some races, and unfortunately didn't. Also, Justin Barcia down, paid a big contract. His teammates, cleaning him up, and he's now been on the sidelines. Injuries. I guess back to the up and down pot, we'd have to probably go Ken Roczen.
I mean that.
Come on,
he's costing me $20 because I thought he was going to win the championship, but
yeah. And that's like $200 or $2,000 all of us.
Yeah, I keep wondering if they're going to bring in when JGR, like they've had. Is it Nicoletti's coming in and filling in? When is there going to be another guy on the yellow bike for RCH?
Who is there?
Yeah, that's a good.
Who would you go to? Yeah,
that's a good.
But there
question.
seems to be. There's always that guy. Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, and Brock Tickles rode well. I mean, he's kind of one of those guys.
Pretty well.
He got a strong fourth in Daytona. He's had some opportunities, but with bad starts, he doesn't work his way up. I mean, he works his way up okay, but it's just, he's been based. He hasn't had the best starts. He's been kind of like Canard off the start, and so it's been inconsistent. But Roczen started off the year with a win, a second, and a win, and it looked like, okay, Dungy, you got your hands full here. Here's a guy that out of this first turn, he would come into the first corner in the first couple of spots. Then he gets a little bit of an injury, and it looks like he has no desire at all to be even near the front of the pack going into the first corner. It's like all of a sudden he forgot how to start. I mean, even when you're injured, you should still be able to get a good, the starting has nothing to do with that. And a guy like Andrew Short, who proved, and there was a great piece of coverage last night on TV showing him shift to third gear on the start. That's what I used to start my old Airhammer 490 in third gear, same reason, because, by the time you really got the clutch completely out and you weren't fighting a wheelie, you were halfway down the starting line and second gear was just too low. So Andrew Short, his secret has been revealed. The field.
It was nice to see that. There's quality television coverage to see that. How many guys are out right now on their motocross bikes practicing third gear
and
starts?
That's a guy too that I don't think we just mentioned, but he's always around.
When you get the whole shot, think about his whole shots in the last. You go back to the heat races and the main events last. He's whole shotted way more than half of them. He's taken the new title from Alessi all of a sudden, because that's probably the next one by down. Alessi just hasn't. I don't know what. Normally he can run up front in the heat race and be competitive or get a whole shot in the main. He just hasn't even been whole shotting, and now he's injuring. Hopefully he'll come back in next week. But his season, I expected just a little bit more out of him, too. So that's kind of the midterm grades, I guess, if you want, report card. And
what do you give Broc Glover?
Oh, D- because I cheated on the girl next to me in her test.
A+ from Broc Glover.
But she was cute.
Yeah. And how about let's talk about Vicky Golden a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about her.
Okay.
Sure.
Last night, as I think you guys maybe, can we play back a tape to remember? But I said if she just hangs in there week after week, pretty soon there's going to be some injuries and some other things, and she's going to get the feel of the tracks and the designs of the jumps and how they feel. Remember how I talked about that? Do you guys remember?
I don't remember.
Each track builder has a little bit of style, and the guys that have been out there for a while kind of all get used to the pitch of the jumps. They get all, even if you go practice at Milestone or some other track around that has a Supercross track, if it's not built by the same guys that are building the ones out there you're racing on at the AMA Pro Supercross, it doesn't have the same feel. And the guys that have been out there for a few years, once the rookies get used to it, they get used to the track and they get used to the rhythm sections and the pitches of the jumps and the whole thing. And what was it? The chasm finish line? Chasm last night.
Jump in the chasm, as Ralph said last night.
So
Ralph just texted and said, would you guys please quit picking on him? Okay. The show was an A, and
but
I can say
it.
chasm however I want.
Okay. So Vicky is now getting a little feel for the track and the track designs, and there's been a few little injuries here and there that have kept it down, so she was within 6/100ths of a second of making the night program.
0.52 technically. I'm reading
so just a little bit more and she'll be
post.
golden.
She says, I was 0.052 off of making the night show, missed it by 2 spots. So happy with my improvement, finally feeling confident and comfortable. We got this night show next weekend in Detroit. Good for her. We're pulling for her.
I'm glad for her too. So very, very impressed with her effort there, and I figured she'd kind of come around to it, and she has. And so we're all pulling forward to make a night program. That'd be great. And so that's my midterm report.
Well done, Professor Glover. And you know what? One of the tougher graders out there is what I've heard around the block. You don't want to get in Professor Glover's class. Yeah. No bathroom breaks for anybody.
Nope.
Yeah, detention if you interrupt them.
Get tough.
But coming up next, too, Brockster, once again, has some inside scoop for us. And perhaps, Paul, you brought it up. You said James Stewart sitting at home, probably grinding his teeth, wishing he was out there. And I know there's a lot of fans out there wishing he was out there as well. We can hit on that when we come back.
I tell you.
And then some.
I'm changing my stripes a little bit on the James Stewart drug controversy a little bit.
Well, we'll let you know what we're hitting at when we come back right here. Bike Week Radio Show, San Diego Sports Leader, Mighty 1090.
The negotiation begins the minute you walk in the door, Frank.
Jerry, I'm going to Toyota Carlsbad for my new Toyota. I don't have to worry.
Brother, walk in with that attitude, you're dead meat.
Yeah, I don't think that's
First
the case.
thing when you walk in,
What?
walk out.
Jerry,
you come back the next day, just walk right in, walk right out.
Look,
come back a week later, look them right in the eye and say,
I'd like to buy a car.
No, walk out.
Jerry, does this explain why you don't own a car?
You made me forget, was I in or out?
You're out.
This spring, hop in and save on a huge selection of new and used Toyotas.
Toyota Carlsbad.
Here's an idea. Bear with me. You could save quite a bit of money just by switching your motorcycle insurance to Geico. Piles of it, in fact. But there may not be a lot of room on your bike for all that extra cash. So I had somewhat of an idea. You could get one of those nifty little sidecars, pile it up with all that money you just saved, and merrily drive on your way. It's just a thought. Just off the top of my head.
Call Geico today for a free motorcycle rate quote. Geico, saving people money on more than just car insurance.
Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys are the real deal. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys. Their entire practice is dedicated to representing motorcyclists. As riders themselves, they understand why you ride, the issues you face, and the motorcycle culture. For over 30 years, Russ Brown and his partner Chuck Coro have been helping injured motorcyclists and their families get the care and compensation they deserve. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys also created BAM. BAM! A nationwide buddy system of over 2 million riders helping riders in the event of a roadside emergency. BAM offers free legal advice, and thanks to Russ Brown, they have staff on hand to take your call 24/7, 365 days a year.
Imagine a real person answering the phone 24/7.
Just call 1-800-4BIKERS for more information and to get your BAM card today. If you go down, call Russ Brown. 1-800-4BIKERS and online at russbrown.com.
You're listening to Bike Week Radio Show with Bobby Wooldridge, Broc Glover, and Paul Carruthers on San Diego's sports leader, the Mighty 1090.
Welcome back, Bike Week Radio Show, San Diego Sports Leader, Mighty 1090. Special shout out to those listening on that brand new handy dandy Bike Week Radio Show smartphone app. And shout
what an app.
To the amazing and talented Phil Kottner who put that together, the brainchild of Phil, and the benefit all of you listeners.
That's right.
But we were just talking about Broc Glover all fired up here in studio. That's why we love to have Brockster back. And Brockster, just just pick up right where you left off, my friend, when we were in the break. Now that the mics are on.
Brockster's fired up here in studio.
Well, let's see. Biggest star that we have in Supercross, right? One of the biggest stars and the big controversy we've had, no question about it, was Paul.
James Stewart.
James Stewart, yeah. He's sitting on the sideline. You mentioned it earlier. James Stewart was, as we all know, caught with a banned substance in his bloodstream at the Seattle Supercross last April, right? So this was, the new USADA/WADA, the World Anti-Doping Association, and the involvement with the FIM. And the drug testing took place there, and I guess James was the only one. And so he had Adderall, which is a ADHD drug, as we all know, in his system, and commonly used, unfortunately, I think, in sports that it's kind of become a little bit of a trend. But, some could argue James is probably likely a good candidate for it. We've all seen him leading races, 10 seconds ahead and fall down with 3 laps to go. Like, what were you doing? Why didn't you just back it off a little bit? So maybe he needs it. So all you need to do is get a TUE, right? The therapeutic use exception, right? So
Sounds
that's
good to me.
Yeah, the TUEs they call it, like Tuesday.
TUE this morning?
So he didn't have it in place, and I, as Bobby was saying, I'm a tough grader there, Professor Glover, and you know what? He has enough people around him. If anyone knew that he was taking it, he has a lot of helpers, man friends, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, somewhat enablers, but also staff or advisors.
Yeah,
they should
help him.
They should have. I have no sympathy
decisions.
for the fact that he didn't put his TUE in place, because you can put it in place and get it in place. And they've talked about it for the outdoors, because the outdoors and the Supercross are 2 different animals, 2 different sanctioning situations. And the outdoors uses USADA, which is the United States Anti-Doping Association, which uses the same rules as WADA. But the point of it all is that they drug tested last April. I found out last week by asking an unnamed official, when was the last drug test that they administered in Supercross? And guess what the answer was?
Last week? 2 weeks ago?
Paul,
maybe a month?
James
Stewart.
Throw in what's your guess, Paul? When would the logical? How about?
Probably a month ago.
Scott, when do you think?
I'm going to say Daytona.
Okay, how about let's see, April of 2014, Seattle.
That's a year
So
ago.
the one that James got in trouble
The
at.
one that
They
James
haven't tested
got
for a year,
They
you're
haven't
telling us.
tested he told me, and I have no reason, this guy's an upper level official, no reason to not believe him, that they haven't tested since Seattle. Now,
did he provide any reasons?
He didn't. And I think he was, after he said that to me, I think he was thinking, why did I probably shouldn't have said
Why
anything.
did I reveal that?
Why did I reveal that to a guy with a radio show?
Pardon me? I was dumbfounded. I was honestly dumbfounded. Why would you not? I mean, I understand. Okay, maybe it's they don't have the money. It's expensive.
Well, then don't start it in the first place.
I couldn't agree with you more, my partner. I like, why would you start something that you can't, follow all the way through? Why can't you just say, we're going to periodically test 3 or 4 times, we're going to budget for it? Well, is it because the AMA is a sanctioning body? Who pays for this drug testing? Well, you say, the AMA. Well, the AMA honestly doesn't have the money. They have a hard time, I think, having the budget to get all their staff to race. And they probably don't charge Feld and the Supercross promoters. The only other one there is the one Daytona race, so it's basically Feld. They probably don't charge enough for a sanctioning fee. And I think if they raise their prices, Feld would just go, then we're going to go with FIM or who knows what. I don't know. And so it's kind of a catch-22. But now Feld is like, yeah, right. Yeah, we're going to help you guys fund drug testing. I don't think so. Yeah. Why would Feld?
Who else can we eliminate?
Yeah, let me think if we can
know how
take.
much money they've lost?
Yeah, let me think if we can take out 5 of our other gate drawing stars. So
Right.
I'm just frustrated with the fact, obviously, that they.
You think they would have at least gone a loan and let's get one more guy so we're not ending with James Stewart?
Well, it's just the point is that just do consistent drug testing that's random or whatever you want to do. Do the top 3 guys at every. I don't care. Pick a number and don't even tell anybody, but you pick the podium, every 5 races or something, you pick it, and then you pick one other top 10 guy. I don't care.
Even if you just have those guys pee in a bottle and you just go dump it in the parking lot, at least we think they're being
Yeah, we did
tested.
some testing.
I'm with you. It's like this is
Now, Brock, when you were racing, with the drug testing, correct me if I'm wrong, it consisted of they would have you hold your head back, stand on one foot, and see if you could touch your nose.
In my era, it
Alphabet
was
backwards
obviously,
and
and it's the same era. I mean, recreational drug usage was the concern. Now it's not. There's all sorts of different things, but I do think recreational drug use ought to be brought to light too. I think they should test for all of it. Performance enhancing, they should do recreational. I don't care. But the point is, don't do one test and then catch one of your stars and then go, oh crap, what did we do? We just, eliminated a star. We don't, because I can see Feld's side of the thing. If you're a businessman, you're not going to go, oh, let's try to eliminate another star or two. We already, we're not filling the stadiums right now anyhow. Is it because the tickets are $50 or $45 to go watch, or is it because we don't have James Stewart?
Well, I think he's a big part of that show. I think
and to his credit, he has been coming to the races. So he's not on the track, but he was
different.
at Indianapolis yesterday.
No, but a season without him isn't as good as a season with him for anybody.
Sport's not as good.
A race without James Stewart in it is not as good. I mean, the guy's arguably the most talented man to ever throw his leg over a motocross bike and on a supercross track particularly. I mean, the guy's amazing to watch. Every time I'm ever even testing with him or ride, I get amazed every time I watch him ride all the time.
Yeah,
and it's like I just turn away and go, I'm glad I don't have to race this guy. And it's like, it's just, but I just can't believe there's no business plan in place, or there's no funding, or there's no explanation why they just.
And ultimately, whether you love motorcycles or love racing, it's a business. Companies are out there supporting racing. Guys like James Stewart, they've made a business decision. I'm going to dedicate my life to the sport. There's an opportunity for me to make a lot of money, but. From a purely business standpoint, you have something like that, like this looming, black helicopter of drug testing that can come in there and ruin the party. I mean, overall, if the whole industry stood back and said, was this a good thing? Or obviously the plan was failed, because we get to Seattle, April 2014, and it's over with for James Stewart. Now, what is the
which of
what's
course
the,
as we
what's
know
the outcome?
Took him a year.
Is he out
almost
just for the season? What will happen? I mean, I still see pictures of him riding and training. Is he okay
By the way,
to
was
come
that
back?
The sickest one photo they released recently?
Yeah,
when
he's
he's
scrubbing
just completely scrubbing. Oh my
it's
God,
ridiculous.
he's flat.
Yeah, he is still allowed to ride a motorcycle.
Yeah, of course.
Like Lance Armstrong's not allowed to do anything. I don't think he's allowed to ride his bike around the block. But no, he can't run in a marathon. He can't go run in a 5K. He can't. He's just like.
He
totally
can,
banned.
He can golf and ride his dirt bike. That's about it. But yeah, it just opens up this whole conspiracy theorist can of worms. Like, why would you even do that? If they tested a bunch of different...
why would you do it to yourself if you were the sanctioning
So
body?
it wasn't like they just tested James at Seattle. They did test other riders, but the point is they caught him using something he could have had approved with a TUE, and he didn't. That was the bad part. It wasn't like it was some performance-enhancing drug, as like we talk about with steroids or something like that. It was, unfortunately, something that
he needed.
It's over the counters. Kids are taking it nowadays. It's not that uncommon, and you see it. But the point is, he should have had a TUE in place, and he didn't. And his mistake. Now he's banned basically a year. And so coming back off of that, now they just stopped testing altogether, or they haven't done it since. Now, are they going to wait until some round in April to say, well, we're testing basically once a year because that's all the money we have? Maybe
so just be clean every April.
Yeah, be April. Just make sure you have the right masking
Don't be April Fool's Day.
Exactly. So I couldn't. That was something that I just last week found out, and I'm like, oh my God.
And you're not a subscriber to the conspiracy theories. You said they are out there, but
I hope not. I better guarantee you post it on the internet and you'd have 50 people weighing in, because there's nothing that pops off a trail of responses unless there's gosh.
People love controversy.
They do, but James, there's the lovers and the haters, unfortunately, and I don't know how you can't have the ultimate
I think
respect for that guy.
I think the more accurate conspiracy theory would be the promoters of the series saying, you know what, we don't need to lose any more people. Can we maybe not do any more testing? I mean, that's just me saying it. That makes more sense than I don't think anybody deliberately tried to nail James Stewart. I think once James Stewart was nailed, I think somebody might step up and say, you know what, we don't need any more of this.
I'm with you. I'm subscriber to Paul's theory there. I think that somebody...
Hey, record that?
Yeah. Well, I just have to say,
mark that tape.
We try for good radio to always disagree, but we don't. I mean, this is at this point right now, I just think that it's who's funding it. I think the dollars, it's expensive. So who's paying for it? And the AMA certainly don't have the extra money in their membership coffers to spend it on pro racing drug testing, and it's not really their job anymore because pro racing has been sold off. So with that being said, when you take the DMG, the Daytona Motorsports Group, who owns the pro race, and then they lease out most of the series to the Feld people and blah, 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 and you go to the outdoors, it goes to MX Sports, then you start going, well, who ultimately is going to pay for it? Now, I will say this, that the MX Sports people for the Outdoor Nationals are much more aggressive with this anti-doping. They've got their money in place. They're going to be testing, and I think you're going to see a much more consistent, well-run drug testing program in the Outdoor Nationals.
So if let's say that the Outdoor Series, a guy gets nailed there, and then that ends up putting him out of Supercross, though, right?
Well, I wish we had the right people here to explain that. It was the more I sat through this meeting, the more I realized that I'm not sure that I completely understand here. The USADA and the WADA thing gets involved there between the United States versus. So there is a way with the USADA to actually get, if in the 250 class has different rules than the 450 class. The bottom line is if you ride the 450 class, you're considered an international rider. If you ride even a 250 rider who steps up like somebody that steps up and rides a 450 race or two, he's still considered a, quote, international level rider, and he's susceptible to the world anti-doping rules, as opposed to a guy that's just racing the 250 lights class or whatever you want to call it, East-West series, and rides the 250 class.
Well, because the 250 guy doesn't earn a world championship, right?
Yeah, he doesn't have to have the same license unless you step up into the 450 and Supercross. That's a different level license, FIM. So that you're actually at that point opening yourself up to different drug testing procedures and requirements. And so it's quite complicated, but not that complicated. Ride clean, and it's no big deal.
All right. Asada, carne asada. I don't know. I'm hungry.
I'm hungry.
Yeah, I'm ready for lunch. But Paul Carruthers, great work out of you, my friend. Scott Cox, the paparazzi here in studio.
Can you hear that? Click.
There'll be some pics up on Bike Week Radio Show, or also
today
on the Bike Week Radio Show smartphone app. And also, Brockster, one more shout out to your lovely baby girl, 16 years young today. Happy birthday.
Jace.
Happy birthday to the entire Glover family. I know it's a big celebration. I expect barbecue will be heading over to the Glover house.
We're going right there.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Well, that'll
just
do
bring some of those beers you stuffed in his
It won't be the first time Bobby goes to a 16-year-old's barbecue.
Uninvited, yeah.
Exactly.
We'll be back next Sunday right here on San Diego Sports Leader, the Mighty 1090.
You've been listening to Bike Week Radio Show.
Powered by Geico. 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.
Join us next week for more Bike Week Radio Show on San Diego's Sports Leader, the Mighty 1090.